Death of Dementia, Terel Beppu was nice enough to join me on a video call. Terrell is the one that helped us sell the house that our older brother lived in. He actually helped us deal with mom and dad's house when they went to assisted living. And he's helped my surviving brother with another estate house as well. I met Terrell through my surviving brother, and he's become a good friend. I trust him fully, and so thanks for doing this for me, Terrell.
It's my pleasure, Brian. I appreciate you bringing me into this. I love that you're putting this series together to help people navigate arguably one of the toughest seasons of one's life. And I think it's nice that you're sort of helping to leave a roadmap for folks. I'm happy to help however I can.
Thanks, bud. What I mentioned in a couple of the videos, in like dealing with our older brother's estate and trying to sell the house, we were deep in it, into money. Just from burying him, cremating him, and all that stuff too. And one of the things I mentioned is we just need to sell the house quick to get our money back. And you made some really good recommendations because the house wasn't in great condition. It hadn't been cared for a while, and we really didn't know where to begin to start and what to fix, what not to fix, and we didn't have deep pockets either. And so, how do you go about making the recommendations of what should be fixed and what shouldn't be fixed?
Sure.
How do you do that?
Good question. You know, Probably not surprisingly, the primary driver on do we invest money in this project or that project is what's the ROI, right? I'm never going to recommend, sort of generically, I would never recommend repairs that a seller's simply going to get reimbursed for. I'm looking for that repair or improvement to either make it easier to sell the home quickly or to provide some kind of a return. And different investments provide different levels of return. You can imagine like a kitchen or a bathroom remodel could return 150% of whatever you spend on it, right? Whereas upgrading an electrical panel from a 100 amp panel to a 200 amp panel, as a homeowner, that's kind of a nice thing to have. You're not going to get any more for the house for doing that, right? And so part of the formula is this going to provide a return? Another example, like a new roof, it's certainly going to add some value, right? Um, but if a new roof, say, is $12,000, and instead the seller's got a budget, and we use that 12,000 for a surround sound home theater system with a 75-inch television, that's included in the sale. That'll probably have more impact and more wow factor than, oh, I guess we don't have to worry about the roof for a while, right? So we're always kind of looking at it from the ROI, lens.
That's return
Yep.
on investment, right?
Yeah, sorry, return on investment. Yep. And then the other sort of perspective that we need to consider things through is timing. Like what I recall about, your brother's place is it had like a sagging fence, and you were wondering, that's a potentially a dangerous, condition. Do we need to invest in the fence? And I remember we chose not to. And the reasoning behind that were two things. One, we're going to disclose it so that it's really clear to everybody that there is an issue with the fence. We're not trying to hide anything. And we want to make sure that people are aware of that for safety reasons and so forth. But two, I knew how important it was for you guys to get this on the market quickly. I know you and your brother were shouldering the expenses of, like you said, cremation and services and logistics and taking on even some of their bills and so forth. And you had mentioned that it was important we get this sold as quickly as we can. And something like a fence, that's a shared expense between neighbors. Sometimes the neighbor is a saint and they say, sure, it looks like it needs it. Let's get a couple quotes and get this done quickly. A lot of times the neighbor is not in a position to cooperate with a fence replacement. And that doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you're paying for the whole thing, right? And sometimes a neighbor just isn't super cooperative. And so knowing that speed was one of our primary objectives, I felt like we should not open up that can of worms and potentially get stalled out, with by letting somebody else have control over our timeline. So that's kind of why we made that decision. Another thing that we sort of think about in terms of investment into the home, and it's easy for and understandable for a seller to view staging the property as just another expense, right? It's like we have all these closing costs, we had to paint, we had to do all these things, and now we got to spend money on staging. certainly you don't have to, but staging is one of the things that helps make like an emotional connection with the home. If somebody walks through a vacant home, they might decide they really like the place, but they're kind of having to use their imagination on, how this space could be used and so forth. When somebody walks through a home, it looks like a Pottery Barn, showroom. It's easy to get really attached to it, and even though intellectually they know the furniture is not coming with the home, it just helps them connect to the property. And the magic when you're selling a home happens, it happens when you have multiple offers, right? When you've got more than one buyer who really like the home and are willing to fight for it. And here in Silicon Valley, in our local market, it is not, it's no thing at all at the table with your agent to say, you know what, we've been shopping a while, we've swung and missed on a few houses. My wife and I really like this place. Like, we want to get this. Like, what do we need to do? Let's increase your offer by $25,000. That happens all the time, right? And staging a property is just call it 5 grand for an average sized home around here.
Yeah.
So I don't view staging as just another expense. To me, it's one of the highest ROI short-term investments you can make, because you're gonna sign a staging contract and spend 5 grand, and 45 days later, your home sold, escrow's closed, and you got your money, and that probably got you 25,000 or more on the sale of your home, and the home probably sold quicker than it would have without the staging. So that's another thing that we often encourage. We didn't do that in the case of your brother's place, although we did in the other two transactions you mentioned for your folks and for your brother. Um, Again, because of speed. And also, on your deceased brother's home, I remember it was clean and functional, but it wasn't really updated.
Mhm.
It was relatively original condition. And sometimes when you put beautiful staging into a home that's not, particularly updated, it doesn't look very natural, and may not have the desired effect. But if the house is like somewhat updated and it's got, fresh carpet and paint, we'd way rather show that with beautiful furniture than vacant. So,
Okay.
those are some of the lenses we look through when deciding what to do to a home and when we're getting it ready for market.
Okay. So it sounds like there's not, I mean, not being in real estate, it sounds like there's not just one cut answer. So basically, you just talk to the client, find out their needs. Like for us, it was let's sell this freaking place so we can pay some bills and their budget as well. And then
Yeah.
you kind of make decisions based on that sort of thing. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
we'll tailor the marketing strategy to what the client's needs and preferences are. See, sometimes folks aren't in a hurry and they say, hey, you know what, Terrell, you're saying we can get X for this property. What if we put 150 into it and did a kitchen and a bathroom and, did some landscaping? What would that do for us? Right. And then I could sort of run those numbers and look at comparable homes in that kind of condition to see what it might sell for. And then say, look, we have time, we have the money, and it sounds like there's a nice return there if we're willing to put forth the effort. So let's do it, And so that might be a totally different strategy with a different client, depending on their circumstances.
Okay. And one of the things that my, surviving brother and I were impressed with, and that's when I first met you too. But one of the things that really impressed me is that every recommendation that you made, you had somebody that could accomplish it for us. And so as busy as we were dealing with, like I said, cremation and all that stuff too, and then mom and dad going downhill, kind of one of the last things I wanted to do is get on the phone and try to figure out, who's going to tear up the car, who's going to paint the house, who's going to do those things. You seem to have kind of a Rolodex. I guess I'm showing my age by
You're
saying
dating
Rolodex.
yourself. Yeah, but I know what you
But
mean.
yeah, but so is that something you pretty much have someone for, and should, do most good real estate agents have those type of contacts that if you want this done, I have someone who I've used before and I trust and I know and that sort of thing.
Yep, I think that you should sort of expect that. I mean, any agent that's been, doing this for a while is going to have a lot of contacts and connections for anything that might need to be done on the home. You form relationships with folks. It's not easy to find, for example, a good painter who's going to show up on time, do what you agreed to have them do, not charge you extra, and finish the job on time. It's not easy to find that, right? And so when you do, you try to align yourself with those kinds of partners. And then over the long run, we as agents end up sending them enough work that, on the rare occasion when I have to say, hey, I really need you to jump, on this one, they just say how high, right? Because we have a good working relationship. So yeah, you should, that's a good question to ask of an agent that you're interviewing, is to make sure they have some folks who can help get the work done to sort of take that off your plate. And I always consider it part of my responsibility and a privilege to serve my clients in that way, to manage that work, right? To show up, and check the work, let my clients know if they're done, if they did it right, if it's okay to release a check to them. A lot of times my clients are out of area, and so that's something that sort of has to happen. But even for clients who are local, that's part of a full service engagement that we'd like to do. So
And working with you, and that dad was in real estate, back years ago. And
yeah,
I want to say he did over 50 plus years in real estate. And I remember then too, he wasn't one of the ones you see on TV all the time with the Mercedes and, 10,000 square foot home. He was one of the ones which you kind of remind me of too, is that he did a lot of business by referral
yeah,
because of the quality of service. And I've dealt with some other real estate agents too, where you go out and they're part of a big company, and you kind of get what you can. Sometimes it's not the same person answering the phone or answering emails and things like that. And years ago, I mentioned this in a video too, dad would have, my brother and I out, fixing holes in sheetrock and stuff like that for
pulling weeds.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so that's how we learned how to do a lot of this construction stuff.
yeah.
Is that how you, having your own business, do you kind of cater those needs and try to work a lot off referral because you're treating your clients to
Yeah.
that point, giving them the referrals and stuff like that?
Yeah, Beppu Group is my agency. We're a small operation, and so when I go on a presentation and I connect with a seller and we agree to work together, I'm not interested in just pawning them off on somebody else. I'm going to be involved every step of the way, and I think, there are advantages to dividing and conquering, but I've never aspired to having a huge team where there's 20 people handling your file instead of one or two. And
Yeah.
so that's, yeah, that's something that and I think, I made a decision early in my career that if in order to be successful in real estate, I had to go knock on doors at dinner time or cold call, like a maniac during the day, that I probably wasn't going to be able to do this. I wouldn't be very successful at it. I don't deal with rejection super well. But I don't like when people do that to me. And
Yeah.
so I wouldn't feel great just going out and doing that to everybody. So my commitment to myself was, I'm going to build this business by referral. And what that meant is, I got to do a really good job. I want to impress the folks that trust me and hire me, because if I do a really good job, they're going to probably be pretty excited about that and might be willing to share that with friends and family. And as long as they're referring folks to me, then I don't have to be out banging on doors and cold calling. So it's kind of a win. It's kind of a win-win. And when you engage with an agent who's doing hundreds of transactions a year, for example, with a large team, more than likely that business is coming by way of hardcore prospecting, right? Cold calling, advertising, door knocking. And someone who's doing a business like that, it's not always, but it's possible for each client to sort of become a number, as opposed to a relationship. And so these are all things to kind of think about when you're interviewing agents, is, what type of a business do they operate? Where's their business come from? How many deals are they doing per year? These are good qualifying questions to ask of a realtor.
Okay. And you're in California. Do you just do Santa Clara County or do you do other counties?
Yeah, I'm principally Santa Clara, but I got a listing in Alameda County right now in the East Bay, and I'll go up the peninsula as far as about Menlo Park, and anything north of that, I would typically refer out to another agent that I trust. So yeah, it's our Silicon Valley is our, I grew up in Cupertino here. I live in Sunnyvale now. So yeah, South Bay is where the majority of our work is.
Okay. And I'll put your website up on or attached to this video. If
Oh, thank you.
somebody is from, out of California or at least out of the Bay Area, do you have any recommendations for them? As you know, you already kind of went into what to look for in a good agent. Anything else you want to recommend or say right now?
Yeah, I would say ask to speak with some of their past clients. You know, folks who've not had a great experience are usually pretty willing to talk about that, and
Yeah.
folks who have are usually also willing to share that. So, you know, ask for references. Also, if somebody's watching this and has a question, even if you're not in my service area, like I want to support Brian and believe in what he's doing here. So if you've got some questions that I could be a resource for, I'm happy to help out. You know, whether you're in my area or not. So I'm happy to do that.
So really appreciate it, brother. Thank you much. And like I said, I'll put your website on the attached to the video.
Great.
And I will hopefully talk to you soon, bud.